interestingly, we haven't seen the indictments yet. There's been some time lag. I suppose it will take some time to go through all the forensic, evidence.
I'm sorry, I'm just I'm in this moment right now. This is crazy. Sorry. People don't really know how much what it does to you when something that you love is taken from you and thrown away like it don't even matter, and then they move on with their lives and you're stuck. You're stuck. During those years, you're still stuck 21.
We're looking at a scandal that isn't just unfolding, it's detonating. Right now, as we speak, the financial records of one of hip-hop's most untouchable figures have been exposed, and the names tied to those transactions read like a who's who of the entertainment elite. This isn't about old drama resurfacing. This is about active, real-time leverage, about payments that were never supposed to see the light of day, and about a man who spent decades collecting secrets like currency. Curtis 50 Cent Jackson isn't just at the center of this storm. He's the one holding the ledger, and what's inside isn't just damning. It's a blueprint of who paid to stay out of his explosive documentary, Sean Combs' The Reckoning, and why those same people are now scrambling as the leaks keep coming.
With the series, with the film?
I mean, I think the intention is to give a more full-bodied experience to what happened, from the people that agreed to sit down and to participate. And I feel like the film asks a lot of questions, maybe more questions are asked than answers given. And
the story breaks open with a single undeniable fact. Bank transfers don't lie. Insiders with direct access to 50 Cent's financial records have confirmed to multiple outlets that a string of high-profile celebrities, names we all know, faces we've seen at the most exclusive parties, allegedly funneled money into his accounts in the months leading up to the documentary's December 2nd drop on Netflix. These weren't donations. They weren't investments. They were transactions tied to one condition: silence. The timing is everything. The documentary, a 4-part expose on the rise and fall of Sean Diddy Combs, didn't just include never-before-seen footage of Combs in the days before his September 2024 arrest. It included testimonies from accusers, former associates, and even jurors from Combs' federal trial, painting a picture of a man who, for decades, operated above the law. But here's the twist. Some of the biggest stars in music, film, and sports didn't want their own roles in that world examined too closely. And according to sources familiar with the leaks, they were willing to pay to ensure it.
As I said, never before seen footage of the days leading up to his arrest. Can you just talk a little bit about, was there anything that surprised you from that footage?
The footage, I think it's rare to find someone who's being, talked about all over the country. All eyes were on him, so to speak. And it was really interesting to see his last days of freedom,
The mechanics of these payments are what make this more than just gossip. We're not talking about vague hush money or off-the-books cash. These were wire transfers, digital trails that connect directly to accounts linked to 50 Cent's production company, G-Unit Film and Television. The amounts vary, but the pattern is the same. Deposits made in late 2023 and early 2024, just as 50 Cent was finalizing the documentary and as Combs' legal troubles were escalating. One industry insider who spoke on the condition of anonymity described the setup as a protection racket dressed up as business. The implication? If you didn't want your name tied to the darker corners of Combs' empire, whether through attendance at his infamous gatherings, past collaborations, or worse, you had a price to pay. And 50 Cent, ever the strategist, allegedly made sure that price was steep enough to guarantee compliance. What's chilling isn't just the existence of these payments, but the contradiction they create. Publicly, the celebrities in question have maintained silence or outright denial. Their PR teams have dismissed the documentary as a one-sided narrative, a hit piece orchestrated by a longtime rival. But privately, the financial records suggest a different story, one that involves desperate attempts to control a narrative that was already slipping away. Take, for example, the cease and desist letter Combs' lawyers sent to Netflix on December 1st, the day before the documentary's release. They called the footage stolen, the project a shameful hit piece. Yet, behind the scenes, the same legal team was reportedly fielding frantic calls from clients who just realized their names might be next. The question isn't just who paid, it's what they were so desperate to hide.
Same kind of extortion that we heard when Cassie took the stand and testified on that airplane ride back from France. Diddy said, "You don't do a freak off, I'm going to release one of the freak off videos that you are profiled in and humiliate."
The documentary itself gave us a roadmap of what was at stake. Sean Combs, The Reckoning, didn't just focus on Combs' conviction on solicitation charges or the racketeering allegations he beat in court. It dug into the culture that enabled him, the parties where lines were crossed, the relationships built on power and fear, and it didn't shy away from naming names. Former bad boy artists, A-list actors, even athletes, all were tied to Combs' world in ways that, until now, had been carefully managed. But 50 Cent wasn't interested in management. He was interested in exposure. And if the leaks are accurate, he gave certain individuals a choice: contribute to the project's budget or risk becoming part of its most damning chapters. For some, the decision was easy. For others, it was a gamble, and one that, judging by the current fallout, they're losing.
Now you take 50, somebody who didn't win diamond, somebody who's still going on tours, somebody who's always been the opposition to Puff. You know, when you seen 50 show those funeral flowers that he got from Diddy, this has been an ongoing thing with them, and it's never gonna stop.
Let's talk about the footage. The documentary's most talked about scenes weren't just the moments where Combs is seen discussing his legal strategy or expressing paranoia about his impending arrest. They were the clips that showed the scope of his influence, the way he moved through rooms filled with the rich and powerful, the way he joked about cleansing himself after interacting with fans, the way he allegedly directed his team to hire someone who dealt in the dirtiest of dirty business. These weren't just snapshots of a man under pressure, they were evidence of a system. And if you were part of that system, you had reason to worry. One source close to the production told Us Weekly that 50 Cent's team received multiple inquiries from high-profile figures asking what would be included in the final cut. The answer, according to the source, was always the same: everything. Unless, of course, you were willing to negotiate. The contradiction between public posturing and private panic is where this story gets interesting. On December 2nd, as the documentary went live, social media lit up with reactions. Some celebrities distanced themselves immediately. Others stayed silent, their accounts going dark for days. But the financial records tell a different story, one of quiet, last-minute deals. One transaction, allegedly linked to a former bad boy artist now signed to a major label, was dated November 28th, just 4 days before the release. Another, tied to a Hollywood actor who'd been photographed at Combs' legendary white parties, was made in 2 installments, the second coming just hours before the documentary dropped. These weren't coincidences. They were insurance policies. And now, with the leaks exposing them, they've become liabilities. What's even more telling is who didn't pay. Sources suggest that several big names refused to engage, either out of principle or because they believed their connections were too buried to resurface.
People know about this very public, long-standing feud that you've had with Sean Combs. So what brought you to this project?
Well, you know, I just want to make really hit television. I like the idea of it being exciting, and I picked this project and started working on it about 5 months before I found Alex. And I know that she has the artistic integrity that it would take to make it a great.
But 50 Cent, as he's made clear in interviews, isn't in the business of burying anything. "I'm telling a story no one else is telling because I don't have the fear that others feel towards him," he told GQ last month. That lack of fear is what makes him dangerous. And it's why the people who did pay are now facing a nightmare scenario. The money didn't buy silence. It bought a delay. Because the documentary, as explosive as it was, might only be the first act. Insiders claim 50 Cent is sitting on even more footage: unreleased interviews, additional financial records, and testimonies that implicate figures who thought they'd bought their way out. The legal fallout is already beginning. Combs' team has been aggressive, issuing statements denying the allegations and threatening lawsuits. But their focus has been on Netflix and 50 Cent, not on the individuals whose names are now tied to these transactions. That's a critical detail. Because if the goal was to suppress information, the strategy has backfired spectacularly. The payments themselves are now the story, and the questions they raise are impossible to ignore. What did these celebrities know? What did they see? And why were they so desperate to ensure their names stayed out of the conversation? Then there's the matter of 50 Cent's motives. He's framed this project as a mission to give voice to the voiceless, to expose a culture of complicity. But let's be clear, this isn't altruism. This is leverage, and 50 Cent has never been shy about using it. In a 2023 interview with The Breakfast Club, he hinted at the power dynamics at play. "Puff's a big part of the culture, and he made it to a respectable position within the culture," he said. "So any smart person would pick their fights." The subtext? He's not one of those smart people. He's the guy who starts them.
So that's just competitive.
Competitiveness. All right, so you and Diddy, you and Puff cool?
No, I don't really rock with him.
Okay,
like that.
damn, all right. I didn't know what that meant. Then. All right, okay.
And if the financial records are any indication, he's been collecting ammunition for years. The documentary's release was just the beginning. Since December 2nd, the leaks have continued, each one more specific than the last. First, it was the names of the celebrities who'd allegedly made payments. Then, it was the amounts, figures that, for some, represented a fraction of their net worth, but for others, were staggering sums that suggested true desperation. Now, the focus is shifting to what these payments were meant to suppress. And that's where things get dangerous. Because if 50 Cent has receipts, he also has stories. And if he's willing to share one, he's willing to share them all. Consider the timing. Combs is currently serving a 50-month sentence, but his legal troubles are far from over. He's facing more than 50 civil lawsuits, many of which allege misconduct that spans decades.
We are following breaking news out of New York City. The jury in the Sean Diddy Combs racketeering, conspiracy, and trafficking trial has reached a verdict on 4 of the 5.
The documentary already connected him to some of the most disturbing allegations in hip-hop history. But what if it's not just about Combs? What if the real story is about the network that protected him? The parties that were attended by household names, the private encounters that were never meant to be discussed, the careers that were built on relationships no one wants to acknowledge? The financial records suggest that some of the biggest stars in entertainment have something to lose. And 50 Cent, as both a producer and a provocateur, is in the perfect position to decide who loses it first. The next domino to fall could be anyone. The list of Combs' associates over the years is a roll call of the elite: Jay-Z, Beyoncé, Usher, Justin Bieber, Leonardo DiCaprio, even Prince Harry, whose name surfaced in a lawsuit tied to Combs' infamous freak-off gatherings. None of them have been directly tied to the payments, yet. But the fact that they're part of the conversation at all is a sign of how far this could go. And if 50 Cent's past behavior is any indication, he's not done dropping names. What's fascinating is how the industry has responded, or in many cases hasn't. There's been no unified front, no collective denial. Instead, there's been radio silence from the people who usually can't stop talking. That silence speaks volumes. It suggests that the fear isn't just of Combs, but of what comes next. Because if 50 Cent has proven anything, it's that he doesn't play by the rules. He rewrites them, and right now, he's the only one with the pen. The documentary gave us a glimpse into Combs' world. The financial leaks are giving us a glimpse into the world that enabled him, and that's where the real reckoning begins. Because for every celebrity who paid to stay out of the story, there's another who didn't, and another who couldn't. The question is no longer about what happened in Combs' inner circle. It's about who was standing just outside of it, close enough to see everything, but far enough to pretend they didn't.
I mean, let's just be real for a second. There are a lot of lawyers who call this legal extortion, and that this is the way the legal system works, which is you threaten somebody with reputational harm, and in this case, it's interesting that Jay-Z, who's very wealthy, said it would be financial ruin.
And that's where we are now, on the precipice of something bigger than a single documentary or a handful of transactions. This is about the cost of complicity, about the price of silence, and about a man who's made it his mission to collect both. The payments were just the first layer. The real story is what they were meant to bury. And if the past week has taught us anything, it's that 50 Cent isn't interested in keeping secrets. He's interested in selling them. And the bidding war has only just begun. The deeper we dig into this web of transactions, the clearer it becomes that these payments aren't just about one documentary. They're about an entire system of protection that's been operating in plain sight for years. And if we follow the money, we start to see connections that stretch far beyond 50 Cent's expose. Take, for example, the timing of these leaks coinciding with Sean Combs' ongoing legal battles. Combs may be behind bars, but his legal team is still fighting tooth and nail in civil court, where more than 50 lawsuits are pending, many alleging misconduct that spans decades. The question now is whether these financial records, showing who paid to stay out of the spotlight, could become evidence in those cases. Legal experts suggest that if these transactions were indeed tied to suppressing testimony or influencing narratives, they could be interpreted as obstruction or worse. And if that happens, the celebrities who thought they were buying silence might find themselves dragged into depositions, their names tied to a scandal they tried so hard to avoid.
Did Phil explain why he's speaking out now?
He said he's speaking out because he believes Diddy's a predator, he wants accountability, and he doesn't want someone like this to run unchecked in the future.
But here's where things get even more complicated. The pattern of these payments mirrors other high-profile cases where hush money and legal settlements have been used to bury allegations before they ever see a courtroom. We've seen it in Hollywood, in the music industry, even in politics. Powerful figures quietly resolving disputes with dollars, ensuring that the public never hears the full story. What makes the situation different is the sheer audacity of the timing. These transactions didn't happen years ago in the shadows. They happened now, in the middle of an active legal and cultural reckoning, and that suggests a level of confidence, or desperation, that we haven't seen before. It's one thing to pay for silence in the past. It's another to do it while the world is watching, while the cameras are rolling, while the documentary is being edited. That's not just damage control. That's a gamble. And if the leaks are any indication, it's a gamble that's about to backfire spectacularly. Let's talk about the ripple effects. The entertainment industry thrives on relationships. Who you know, who you've worked with, who you've partied with. But when those relationships become liabilities, the entire machine starts to shake. We're already seeing signs of that. Sources within major labels and studios tell us that there's a quiet panic happening behind closed doors. Projects are being reassessed. Collaborations are being put on hold. And it's not just about Combs anymore. It's about who else might be implicated if more records surface. One music executive, speaking off the record, admitted that several artists have been strongly advised to distance themselves from anyone tied to Combs' inner circle. Even if their own names haven't been mentioned yet, the fear isn't just of guilt by association. It's of being the next name on a leaked list.
A revolt. Go back to that 50 Cent post. Because I'm going to tell you why 50 is literally a diabolical genius.
And then there's the media angle. The fact that Netflix, a streaming giant with deep legal resources, stood by the documentary despite Combs' cease and desist letter speaks volumes. It suggests they knew the risks, and that they had the receipts to back it up. But what if this is just the beginning? What if other outlets, emboldened by the leaks, start digging into their own archives? We've already seen how one documentary can reignite old scandals, resurface forgotten lawsuits, and put pressure on figures who thought they were safe. Imagine what happens when multiple investigations start connecting the dots. The financial records might be the first domino, but they won't be the last. The most intriguing part of this story isn't just who paid, it's who didn't. Insiders claim that several high-profile figures refused to engage with 50 Cent's team, either because they believed their connections to Combs were too buried to resurface, or because they had their own leverage to wield. But in an industry where loyalty is transactional, that refusal might have been a miscalculation. Because if 50 Cent has shown us anything, it's that he doesn't forget, and he doesn't forgive. The names we haven't heard yet might be the most damning of all, and if the pattern holds, they'll surface at the worst possible moment. Let's not forget the broader cultural context. This isn't happening in a vacuum. The past few years have seen a reckoning in entertainment, where figures who once seemed untouchable have been brought down by their own hubris. The difference here is that Combs' case, and the web of connections around it, isn't just about one man's downfall. It's about an entire ecosystem of enablers, beneficiaries, and silent witnesses. The leaked payments are a roadmap of who had something to lose. And if history is any guide, those are the people who will be scrutinized next. Because in scandals like this, the first rule is simple. If you're willing to pay to keep a secret, someone else is willing to sell it.
Come out and collect everybody's phone. So now it's just your word against a billionaire. You're gonna lose. Read this right there from that young man.
Now, let's consider the unreleased material. 50 Cent has hinted in interviews that there's more footage, more testimonies, more financial records that didn't make it into the documentary. Some of it he's suggested is too explosive to drop all at once. That's not just a tease, it's a strategy. By holding back, he ensures that the story stays alive, that the pressure keeps building, and that the people who thought they'd bought their way out stay on edge. And if the past is any indication, he's not the only one sitting on unreleased evidence. Former associates, legal teams, even law enforcement agencies have files that could rewrite this narrative overnight. The question is, who will blink first? The legal implications are staggering. If these payments were indeed tied to suppressing evidence or influencing witnesses, they could be seen as part of a broader pattern of obstruction. And in Combs' case, where federal investigators have already shown a willingness to dig deep, that's a risk no one can afford. We've seen how quickly a financial trail can turn into a legal nightmare. Just ask the celebrities who thought their names were safe. Because if the FBI or the U.S. Attorney's Office decides to follow the money, those transactions won't just be embarrassing. They'll be exhibits. And then there's the public court of opinion. In the age of social media, a scandal like this doesn't just fade away. It evolves. It spreads. It becomes a movement. We've already seen the backlash against figures tied to Combs' world. Sponsors dropping, collaborations canceled, reputations tarnished. But what happens when the focus shifts from Combs himself to the network that protected him? That's when the real reckoning begins. Because the public doesn't just want accountability for one man, they want it for everyone who enabled him. The most chilling aspect of this story is how it reflects a larger truth about power and entertainment. For years, the industry has operated on a simple principle. If you're big enough, you can write your own rules. But what happens when the rules change? When the people who once benefited from silence are the ones being silenced? When the leverage shifts from the powerful to the exposed? That's the moment we're in now, and if the leaks are any indication, it's only going to get messier. We can't ignore the timing of all this. Combs is in prison, but his legal battles are far from over. The civil lawsuits alone could drag on for years, and each one is a potential landmine. If the financial records tie into those cases, if they show a pattern of suppressing evidence or influencing witnesses, they could become a central part of the narrative. And that's a narrative no one wants to be part of. Because in the end, it's not just about Combs. It's about who helped him stay on top for so long, and who's still trying to protect themselves. The final piece of this puzzle is the most unsettling. What else is out there? We know about the payments. We know about the documentary. But what about the things we don't know? The unreleased footage, the sealed testimonies, the conversations that happened behind closed doors. If 50 Cent is sitting on more, he's not the only one. And in a scandal this big, the truth has a way of coming out, no matter how much money someone throws at it. So here's where we leave it, with a question that's been hanging over this story from the beginning. If these leaks are just the tip of the iceberg, what's still hidden beneath the surface? And more importantly, who's willing to risk everything to keep it there? Stay sharp, stay curious, and as always, we'll be watching. Because in a story this big, the next chapter is always just around the corner. And trust us, you won't want to miss it.